Well, happy Wednesday. Hopefully, you're having a glorious Wednesday. And I just want to take this time to thank you for clicking on my video. Now, this story comes from CNN, but it's also not just on CNN. Um, there's several sources coming from this. So you get the Washington Compost, you have CNN, The Guardian. I'm not going to really trust the Kyiv Independence, but it seems like it's been all over. Seems like more than 20,000 of his troops died in Berkmuk battle. Let's see here. Wagner chief feud with Russia. Military cracks Putin's image of control. I don't know how true this is. Let's see here. Putin humiliated a Russian mercenary chief, launches the furious attacks against the president or on the president. But according to CNN, Wagner chief warns Russians could revolt if the invasion continues to struggle. I don't know how legitimate this is. I don't even know if this is Ukraine propaganda or this is actually something real. Because I've heard on, not sources, but Ad Heidelman, or not Ad Heidelman, but forget what the word I'm looking for is. But I've heard that the people of Russia says that Putin is being too soft on Ukraine and that they should just send in the full force of the military to take over Ukraine. And he's not exactly doing that. Well, he's not from at least not from the start. So I don't know if there's more calls for that. But we're going to read what CNN has to say. I mean, they're not necessarily the most trusted news network by far, but we'll see what they have to say. A new revolution could rock Russia if its starting war efforts in Ukraine continues. The chief of the private military group Wagner has said in a scathing assessment of Moscow military readiness that could further expose divisions in the Russia President Vladimir Putin's military hierarchy. Yevgeny Prigozhin, hopefully I'm pronouncing that name correct, said in an interview with Korsistan Dolgov, a pro-Russia blogger in Moscow, that Moscow troops are unprepared to resist forces loyal to Kyiv, even when they enter Russia territory. He also praised the capabilities of the Ukrainian army and urged Moscow to escalate the war effort if he wants to avoid a long and costly conflict. I believe Ukrainians today are one of the strongest armies in the world. He called Kyiv forces highly organized, highly trained, and their intelligence is on the highest level. They can operate any military system with equal success in Soviet or a NATO one. I mean, I'm good thing that my tax money is going to great programs to train the Ukrainian military to be highly trained, highly organized, and their intelligence on the highest levels. The best money U.S. taxpayers can pay for. In recent days, Moscow has suffered embarrassment when a group of anti-Putin Russians entered the Belgorod region in an inclusion that caused anger and confusion among Russia influential military analysts asked about the incident. Prigozhin said that Russia's defense forces are absolutely not ready to resist them in any shape or form. Here we are with Ukraine, that is our enemy in the middle of a war. Russian volunteer corps groups came in effortlessly to go through the border in tanks and APCs without any repercussions and make their own videos of it. I think it should be of it. Wagner chief vented. This person has frequently criticized Russia's traditional military hierarchy and sought to win power struggle against the military commanders to lead Putin's ground effort in eastern Ukraine. Earlier this month, he blamed the Russian defense chiefs for tens of thousands of Wagner casualties because they didn't have enough ammunition. But his comments to divulge were alarmist even for the free-willing Putin ally, as he has frequently done. Prigozhin, I don't know how to say his name, the chief Wagner, urged Moscow to step up its war in order to defeat Ukraine, urging Putin to declare a martial law and a new wave of mobilization. He warned if Russia losses continue to mount. He warned if Russia losses continue to mount. One of these days I'll learn to read. All these divisions can end in what a revolution just like 1917. First the soldiers will stand up, and after that their loved ones will rise up. It's wrong to think that there are hundreds of them. There are already tens of thousands of them, relatives of those killed, and there will probably be hundreds of thousands we cannot avoid like that. Russia forces, primarily made up the Wagner troop, have labored for months over the capture of Bakhmut, a city in Ukraine east, a relatively insignificant strategic value where Russia has suffered vast losses, and the larger group campaign has been stalemate since the string of success of Ukraine counterattacks last autumn. So once again, the Russia military might continues. Number-wise, Russia could afford to lose more than Ukraine does. No one says that this war was going to be over quickly, except for the Western. Let's see here. According to the AP, let's see what the AP has to say. Head of Russian private army Wagner says more than 20,000 of his troops died in the Bakhmut battle. See, the head of the Russian private army Wagner has again broken with the Kremlin line on Ukraine, saying its goal to demilitarize the country has backfired, acknowledging Russian troops have killed citizens and agreeing with Western estimate that he has lost more than 20,000 men in the battle for Bakhmut. Yevgeny Preuss said about half of those who died in the eastern Ukraine were Russian convicts recruited for their 15-month war. He figures stood in stark contrast to Moscow's widely disputed claims that over 6,000 of its troops were killed throughout the war as January. By comparison, the official Soviet, is it really Soviet? Oh, the Soviet troop losses in 1979 through 89 Afghan war were 15,000. Ukraine hasn't said how many of its soldiers have died since Russia's full-scale invasion began in February 2020. It's suspected that Russia's also been killing them in droves. White House officials said Wednesday that the Pellegrin's comments were in line with their own estimate that Russian losses have accelerated. The White House estimated this month that Russian forces have suffered 100,000 casualties, including 20,000 killed in fighting since December. The White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said then it's about half of those were Wagner forces. Analysts believe that many of those killed in the nine-month fight for Bakhmut were Russia convicts with little military training. Whoever this name is, I can't pronounce it. I'm sorry. I'm not Russian. Himself, a former convict, has frequently criticized Russian military officials for not supplying his troops with enough ammunition. He also questioned their tactic, commitment, and leadership capabilities, and complained that they haven't sufficiently credited his forces for battlefield successes. I mean, it seems like Russia is throwing these people to the meat grinder to use up the resources that NATO is providing Ukraine. And that's what it sounds like. And they're using convicts or prison labor, which is a kind of a tactic that I think Stalin used during World War II. He just conscripted everybody, told them to go fight. It's here in an interview published late Tuesday with Konstantin Dolgov, a pro-Kremlin political strategist. Phil Golzin went even further in this criticism, questioning some of Russia President Vladimir Putin's rationale for the war. Prigozhin said that Russia's goal for demilitarization Ukraine has backfired because Kyiv's military have become stronger with Western weapons and training. The invading Ukraine, Putin also cited the need to increase Russia security and prevent Ukraine from joining NATO. Since the war began, Ukraine has applied to join NATO, and cross-border attacks into Russia itself have increased. In Washington, Kirby speculated Wednesday that on Prigozhin motives, and it's possible that this could be some sort of morbid way of him claiming credit for whatever they've been able to achieve in Bakhmut, but also trying to publicly embrace the Ministry of Defense further, that the cost was borne in blood and the treasure by Wagner and not by the Russian military. In the interview, Prigozhin also challenged Moscow's vehement denials that Russian forces have killed civilians. In what has said likely low estimate that the UN Office and High Commissioner for Human Rights say that February 2022 until early April 2023, a record that 22,734 civilian casualties in Ukraine, 8,490 killed, and 14,244 injured. It's a war zone. I'm sorry, it's a war zone, and civilians always get in a crossfire, even when they don't want to be. I mean, the United States has drone bombed weddings just to kill one terrorist, just to find out that they're not there or wasn't there. Let's see here. Prigozhin, a wealthy businessman with a long-time links to Putin, is known for his bluster and often spiced with obscenities, has previously made unfavorable claims to which he later backtracked. Earlier this month, his media team published a video shouting, swearing, and pointing about 30 uniformed bodies on the ground, saying that there were Wagner fighters who died in a single day. He claimed that the Russian Defense Ministry has starved his men of ammunition, and he threatened to give up the fight for Bakhmut. Prigozhin often frequently warned that the counteroffensive that Ukraine officials have said that they are planning. In a Tuesday interview, he said that given the continued Western support, Kyiv's forces might succeed in pushing Russian troops out of all territories they occupy in the southern and eastern Ukraine, as well as annex Crimea. The pessimistic scenario, the Ukrainians are given missiles, they're prepared troops, and of course they will continue their offensive to try to counterattack, he said. They'll attack Crimea and they will try to blow up the Crimean bridge to the Russian mainland, cut off our supply lines. Therefore, we need to prepare for a hard war. So pretty much this dude is saying that a bunch of his missionary men or constricted men of convicts have died to give Russia a victory. And if Putin doesn't take this more seriously, he's going to have a revolt on his hands for not taking this war more seriously. But I think Putin's taking this very seriously. I don't know if there's going to be a revolution. It could be just CNN trying to spark up wishful thinking. But it's hard to say. I mean, it's really hard to say. But I just know that this war probably will be over in probably 2 to 3 years from now. But I could be wrong. This could go on for probably another 8 years. We don't know, and that's the interesting part about this. Because, war is all about two opposing forces not able to get along or come to agreement, so they sell this with military might. And Ukraine has the world's support, so that's a lot of support. But the issue is Ukraine has a very limited population. Now Russia also has a limited population, but they have more of a population that they could send into the meat grinder than Ukraine has. And I don't know how this war ends. I think a lot of people have guessing how this is going to end, but we don't know how it's going to end. And we don't know what's going to happen with the investigation into the pipeline, the Nord Stream pipeline, that allegedly Biden had blown up. That being said, that is an update to the Russian-Ukraine war. Just kind of interesting. I just kind of saw the headline and wanted to talk about it. So leave a comment down below what your thoughts are, but most importantly, have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening.